Hello, and welcome back. I am so glad you could join me for another reading. I hope this episode finds you well. Hello to everyone in the live chat. I hope you guys are enjoying. Uh, as always, first off, huge shout out to my patrons. You guys are amazing. I couldn't do this without you guys. If you'd like to join them, there are links in the description to my Patreon if you would like to support the channel and what I do. I don't have any further announcements other than the studio. This black box is going to change pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. And I think without any further ado... Oh, there was a break. Thank you for bearing with me through the break. It's allowing me to work on some other things that are coming up, as well as move, and just kind of let the dust settle. But I think with that, we'll jump back into The Legend of Luke by Brian Jacques, Book 2, Luke, Chapter 16. There were other mice in the tribe, older and more experienced, younger mice, also, bigger and stronger, but every beast regarded Luke as their natural leader. As mice go, he was nothing special to look upon, of average height and stocky build. However, upon closer observation, it became obvious that Luke was a warrior born. Behind his calm, dark eyes there lurked a flame. His stance bespoke fearlessness. Some indefinable quality in his whole attitude marked him as one in whom others could put their unquestioning trust. A mouse tribe could look to him for guidance, and he could always be counted on for fairness and wisdom in his decisions. Such a creature was Luke, the warrior. Over many seasons, the tribe had wandered under his leadership. Long ago, they had left the warm areas of abundance, those places where verminous villains preyed upon any who sought the peaceful life. Constant warfare against outnumbering odds had forced Luke's tribe into the nomadic way, always seeking and searching for some place where they would not have to sleep paw on sword with one eye open. From the fertile Middle Lands they roamed north, where the weather was cold and the land bleak and sparse. On the day they reached the northland coast, Luke thrust his sword into the earth. This would be his tribe's new home. It was a lonely place, quiet and undisturbed. The tribe approved Luke's decision. Hard-working beasts could wrest a living from the ground here, providing they were left in peace to do so. There were caves in the base of the cliffs which backed the shore, a high rocky cape thrusting out to the sea at the southern point. It felt safe, with cliffs at the back and the seas in front of them. There was good soil on the cliff tops, which could be planted and farmed in spring, summer, and autumn. For the first few days, they kept a low profile, living off what supplies they had stored, making the caves habitable. During this time, Luke and his friends patrolled the area, watching out for enemies, robber bands, and vermin raiders. Luke knew that his tribe was only a small one, wearied by constant travel, and would not be able to resist any major attack from a large force. But happily, there was neither sight nor trace of foe beast. Then, on the fourth day, Luke strode ahead of the rest as they made their way back to the caves. His step was light, and a shudder of joy ran through him. He felt that this forsaken northland coast was already bringing him happiness. Only 2 days before, his wife Sana had given birth to their first little one, a son. They would call the new baby mouse by the name of Martin. Luke's grandsire had been named Martin, and when he was young, Luke had often listened to tales that were told of the formidable warrior mouse. It was his sword that Luke carried in the sheath upon his back, given to him by his own father. Luke was the third of his family to carry the old battle blade, and one day, when the time was right, little Martin would be next. The tribe were busy preparing a feast for Luke and Sana's son, the first little one to be born on the northland coast. There was to be a great bonfire, too. As Luke came within sight of the caves, he could see the ever-growing mound of driftwood and dead timber being piled above the tide line. 2 young mice were struggling to bring a big chunk of driftwood along the shore. Luke approached them, a smile hovering on his face at their efforts. "Well, well, Timbalisto and Fripple, when do you plan on getting that log to the bonfire pile? Next season?" Both mice were little better than 3 seasons old. They sat down wearily on the log, big round eyes imploring Luke. "It's too big for us! Luke, you lend a paw!" The warrior mouse drew his ancient battle sword from his sheath on its back and swung it high overhead, bringing the sharp blade to bite down deep into the wood. Righto, you two rascals. Grab a hold of the sword hilt with me. We'll see if it moves any easier with the three of us strong beasts pulling it. Come on! Heaving energetically, Luke tugged the lump of wood through the sand. He watched fondly as the two little mice pulled valiantly, each latched onto the cross hilt. When they brought the log to the pile of timber, Luke allowed Fripple and Timbalisto to help him loose the sword, though he could have easily done it alone. He passed a paw across his brow, winking at them. Phew! Thank ye, mate. 'Twas a job well done. The little mouse-maid Fripple took hold of Luke's paw. Please, Luke, will you take me to your cave to see a new baby Martin? Please, Luke! Luke could not help chuckling at the beseeching look on Fripple's face. He tweaked her paw gently. Of course I will, pretty one. What about you, Timble? Timbalisto scowled fiercely. I'll stay here and guard our wood till you get back. Martin's cradle was a hollowed-out log lined with soft moss and a woven blanket. The only family Luke had left in the world sat by it, his wife Sena and her mother Windred. Crowing with delight, Fripple leaned over the cradle and took the baby's paw in hers. Oh, my, isn't he a lovely little fella? Sena held the mousemaid's smock, lest she fall into the cradle. Aye, he's a good baby, no trouble at all. I think he will grow even bigger and stronger than his daddy. Martin's eyes watched solemnly as his father loomed over him. He raised a tiny paw, reaching for the hilt protruding over his father's shoulder. This delighted Luke. Oh, look at this bucko trying to draw my sword! Windred hovered around the cradle anxiously. Be careful, he might cut himself on that blade. Luke reassured the fussing old mousewife. Oh, no, he won't. Martin's a warrior born, I feel it. Let my son hold the sword. It'll be his one day. Sena watched her serious-faced babe trying to wrap his tiny paws around the black-bound haft with its redstone pommel. She shivered slightly. May the fates forbid that he'll ever have to use it in war. Luke released Martin's hold and stood up straight. Don't worry, Sena. That'll never happen whilst I'm around. Besides, I don't think we'll be bothered here, being this far north. We've searched the shores and cliffs both ways. There's nothing much to the south, and if you go further north, there's only some great tall rocks sticking up out to the sea about 3 days from here. Not a paw print of vermin anywhere. Now, what about our son's feast? Windred turned to the cave entrance. Out on the shore, the mice of the tribe were setting out what food they had foraged by the unlit bonfire. Each had brought what they could afford to spare, but it was not much. Windred spoke. Ha! Feast, you say? 'Tis a wonder we keep fur and round bone in this forsaken coast. You've brought us to a cold and hungry place, Luke. Sena checked Windred reprovingly. That's not fair, mother. 'Tis not Luke's fault. Where the food was plentiful, so were our enemies. At least we have safety up here, and when spring comes we'll be able to farm and plant the cliff-top lands. Luke says there's good soil up there. What about those berries old Twula saw yesterday? Luke glanced from one to the other. What berries? Where did Twula see them? Sena explained. He took a walk last evening, north along the shore, and said he saw lots of berries growing in a rift near the cliff-top. But there were great seabirds up there too, nesting. I thought it might be dangerous, which is why I didn't mention it yesterday. Seabirds can be very fierce creatures. Luke patted his sword hilt. Aye, and so am I when our tribe needs food. Leave it to me. I'll take some good well-armed fighters with me, and Twula can show us the spot. We won't harm the seabirds if they don't attack us, and I don't think they will. For what need have they of berries? Seabirds live on what they can scavenge from the sea and the tide line. We'll gather the fruit and uproot a few young bushes to plant on the cliff tops back here. Now, there's no cause for worry for fuss. I'll leave some warriors back here to guard our camp, and I'll be back as soon as I can, with whatever we find up there. Carry on with the feast. The youngsters are expecting it. I'll try and return before it's finished. Sena placed Luke's warm cloak about his shoulders. You'll need this. It get cold up there at night. Bring back a little blackberry bramble, and I'll plant it so that Martin will be able to help me pick the berries in a few seasons. Windred adjusted the cloak around Luke's sword. Aye, and be careful out there. This is still a strange country to us, Luke. With a score and a half of good mice that he could depend upon, Luke set out north along the shore. However, they could only travel as fast as old Tula, and the ancient mouse hobbled along at a slow, creaky gait. It was close to midnight when the foraging party reached the high crag where the berries grew. Tula sat down wearily upon the sand, pointing upward.
That's the place, Luke, but I ain't going up there. Some of those seabirds are as big as eagles.
Luke took off his cloak and wrapped it around the old fellow. You did well getting us this far, Tula. Stay there and rest. We'll go up. Vug, Denno, bring the ropes. By those who knew the coasts and high seas, one name was whispered with terror and loathing. Vilu Daskar. The pirate stoat was known by other names: butcher, thief, torturer, murderer, but none more frightening than his own. Vilu Daskar, captain of the biggest vessel to ever plow the main, a trireme with 3 banks of oars pulled by wretched slaves, crimson red from the pennants fluttering at its forepeaks down to the 4 mighty sails to its gigantic keel, always leaving behind a thin red wake from the dyes which oozed out of its timbers. Jutting out from the prow stood an immense iron spike, rusted red by long seasons of salt water. Such was the red ship named the Gorleech by its master, Vilu Daskar. Evil was his trade, the red ship his floating fortress. Aboard it he could disappear into the trackless wastes of the seas and ocean, materializing again to prey on the unwary. Coastal settlements, inland hamlets, even the island havens of other sea raiders and corsairs. None were safe from the Gorleech and its bloodthirsty crew, a mob of wild, cruel vermin. Mercenaries, assassins, cutthroats, and the flotsam and jetsam of earth and waters. These sea rogues were ruled by 2 things alone: a lust for plunder and slaughter, and a blood-chilling fear of their lord, Vilu Daskar. He reveled in the dread that his name instilled to all. In the 'tween decks of the Gorleech, relentless drums pounded incessantly. Chained to the oars, masses of gaunt slaves bent their backs and pulled, straightening with joint groaning as they heaved on the long wooden sweeps. To the accompaniment of slave drivers cracking their whips and the ever-present drumbeat, the red ship sailed into the waters off the north coast. Vilu Daskar leaned against the stern galley rail, his alert dark eyes watching constantly, like a snake about to strike. Unlike other seagoing vermin, he was highly intelligent, well-spoken, and modestly garbed. He wore a long red cloak, beneath which was a plain black tunic, belted by a broad red calico sash, through which was thrust a long bone-handled scimitar. The only concession to finery was his headgear, a white silken scarf bound around his brow, atop which he wore a rounded silver helmet with a spike at its center. Tall and sinewy, he cut a quite quietly elegant figure, unlike the crew under his command, all arrayed in a jumble of tattered finery and sporting heavy tattoos and masses of gaudy earrings, necklets, and bracelets. Evening light was fading fast over the cold seas when from the high mainmast a sea rat called Grig sang out from the crow's nest. "Hand away! Off larboard, captain! I sees a light in shore, sire, to the north of that rocky point!" Vilu flicked his eyes in that direction given without moving his body. Akla, the ferret steers beast, held the ship's wheel steady, awaiting his captain's commands. Even if it meant running the Gorleech under rocks, he knew better than to change course without Vilu's orders. The stoat spoke without raising his voice. "Sweep south, and take in behind that big rock point." 2 other vermin stood waiting as Vilu peered hard at the faint glue off in the shoreline. He issued orders to them without turning, knowing they would obey instantly. Reef and furl all sails, and increase the oar stroke to double speed. We need to get out of sight quickly. Abruptly, he strode off forward, where his boatswain, the sea rat Parog, had a better view of the shore. "So, my keen-eyed boatswain, what do you see?" Parog scratched at his beribboned whiskers, plainly bewildered. "'Tis hard to tell, captain. Oh, that's a fire right enough, and a good big un, though it couldn't be seen from this distance, sire. A thin smile hovered on Vilu's lips. But the bemused boatswain shook his head. But any beast to be mad to light a fire that big on the northland shore. What are they up to, Captain? Vilu lost sight of the glow as the Gorleech turned south, the headland blocking his view. Well, no creature in their right mind would set up a signal beacon on the shore, so they are either out of their minds or ignorant of the danger. Maybe that's it, Parog. They might merely be simple beasts having some sort of celebration, eh? Parog's dull face broke out in a grin. Oh, like a kind of feast, you mean, sire? The stoat's paw strayed to his bone-handled scimitar. Quite. Not very courteous of them. The least they could have done was invite us. Parog's grin widened. So we anchor the other side of yon point, and comes over the rocks and invites ourselves, eh, Captain? Vilu stroked the white-boned scimitar hilt. Exactly. We might not attend the feast, but the least I can do is present my calling card. Parog stared blankly at his captain. Calling card? What's a calling card, sire? With lightning speed, the scimitar blade's tip was touching the boatswain's throat. This is my calling card. Parog's throat bobbed nervously under the sharp blade tip. Oh, I see, sire. Vilu Daskar tired of the one-sided conversation. He put up his sword and strode off. Darkness had fallen. Luke's tribe laughed and sang around the bonfire, unaware of the big red ship anchoring on the further side of the south point. And that's where we'll end this one. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I do hope you're enjoying it. If you are, please like, share, subscribe, the whole deal. A huge thank you again to my patrons. If you would like to join them and support this channel, there are links to do so in the description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I hope you stay well. I hope you stay healthy, wash your hands. I hope you have a good week, guys.